Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see your lovely unmasked faces. It's been, what's funny is I was here this week for Legends on La Cienega, and it was the first time that we've all really gotten together since this thing ended, and I don't think that I will ever take these gatherings for granted again. So thank you for coming out. It's really nice to see you. Michelle, Avi, thank you for having us. Welcome to Doctoring Up Design. This is basically a digital content series talking about how to solve a lot of the problems that designers, clients, builders, architects, product showrooms that we have in the industry. We're trying to address these issues in real time, in real ways. So what we have today is, I'm extremely excited about this conversation. We're talking double vision for outdoor living, which is basically kind of a return to the idea of Los Angeles, Southern California in the 1970s, right? Where Laurel Canyon, you just open the doors and you enjoy the outside. We've gotten to the point where technology and noise and pollution and all of these issues have kind of cut us off from inside, outside, combined living. So what we're talking about today is a product showcase, an idea showcase. We've got 4 amazing experts here, and this is a conversation about indoor-outdoor living and products and design and solving some problems and chopping it up a little bit. And what we're going to do is, after this conversation ends, we're going to have some lunch, and our 4 guests are going to spread out, and they have a demo. They're each going to be working on a demo, and I'd like to encourage you to take your lunch, go talk to them. Ask the questions that you're not going to ask sitting here, but ask the questions, watch what they're doing, and hopefully this will inspire you. Hopefully it will give you some ideas, and we'll solve some problems. So if you see me looking at my phone, I am not checking my email. I am actually just checking some notes. Isn't it funny that we actually have to say that now? Like, hey, listen, I'm totally into this. I'm not checking my email. It's all good. But I do want to just let you know there are notes. This is a planned conversation, but it's also free form. This is not an interview. It's more of a conversation. So with that, I'm going to ask our guests to introduce themselves, because I could read a bio, but it's always better when they do it themselves.
That being said, thanks for coming, guys. Nice to see everybody. My name is Jeremy Anseth, and I'm a designer builder, 3rd generation LA builder. My grandfather was a builder back in the 40s and did a lot of celebrity homes through Bel Air and Brentwood. And then my dad took over the company in the 70s and did a lot of government projects. And then I took it over in 2000 and started to get into remodels, additions, and kind of like the modern side of design. And ran into Michelle 15 years ago, I would say, and we started working together doing composites, and through our work together, I designed and patented a deck frame system called Quick Joist that I use for roof decks and multiple applications that you guys will see in a little bit, and then teamed up with another company out of Holland called S-Deck, and it's a composite that is a urethane that's used on cruise ships, mega yachts, and now they use it for residential and commercial use. So that being said, William
Schnetz. I work in exterior design, landscape, horticulture, really trying to bring the interior and the exterior together, utilizing all the products that we have nowadays. And for me, working with the other designers as a team to bring the big picture together so that we're creating more square footage to live and participate in. So, Michael?
I'm Mike Poirier. If you speak French, it's actually pronounced Poirier, but no one says that. It's like the MMA fighter. It's also like Sidney Poitier, but with R. And I'm a licensed architect. I've been in LA for my whole life, but I've been working since '95 for all the high-end architecture firms you might have heard of. And primarily right now, I've done lots of work in Hope Ranch and Montecito and Beverly Hills and Laguna Beach and Newport Beach, etc. Right now, I have Poirier Design, and then I'm also the main architect and designer Also, halfway a job super for Roman James Design Build, and we're doing a lot of $20 million homes, or that kind of level. And so one aspect of working with guys like Jeremy and William is we do always try to push our clients to do the highest quality we can get. And so it's always good to know, like, just like what the best bathtub is or what the best toilet is, also what the best decking is and what the best kind of flush situation detail is. And so that's kind of what we get with the talk today is I'll be talking about flush detailing and indoor, outdoor smooth transitions with door sills, etc. Garth?
My name is Garth Leavens. I'm located up in Northern California in Sonoma County, and I am currently a building materials distributor specializing in decking. Almost 40 years. I'm almost 40 years old. My dad was a deck specialist in San Diego from the time I was born. Currently a deck specialist in Northern California. So my background is primarily in construction. Started working in the building materials distribution business about 5 years ago, and trying to bring cutting edge new technology, the best decking products basically to high-end specialty places like Design Hardware, and so that you can get the best results from these guys. And that's pretty much what we do. We just search out the best materials. My background in deck building and construction allows me to know sort of the different kinds of issues you can run into in different sites, and it helps to choose what products we're going to offer to sell. So.
With that, there are also two additional partners here that are not a part of the panel, but when we break, I encourage you to go talk to them. We have Moya and Wynn O'Neill from Moya Living, and their stunningly beautiful cabinetry you will find up at the front. And then we have Rocky Roshan of the Paint Lab. His display is right over there. Rocky's a designer, and when you look at his product, you don't know that he's a designer, but he actually does incredible, stunning work. And so when you have someone who created a paint product, who is actually a designer, who is the one designing rooms, you get it straight from the horse's mouth. I'm not calling you a horse, I'm just saying you're an absolute pro.
His map.
You are an absolute pro. So make sure you stop by and talk to them as well. We're trying to, no pun intended, we're trying to paint a picture for you here about using product and design. And Mike, I want to throw out the first question. It's not really a question, but it's a topic to you. Talk to me and the group a little bit about what it means inside, outside, outdoor living, indoor living, especially in light of what we've been dealing with in the last 3 years, and how that's changed the ideas behind design.
Yeah, I think, we all just went through the pandemic, right? And maybe we're still going through it. I think everybody kind of realized the importance of outdoor space, right? Maybe they had friends that were scared to come over, or they don't want to meet indoors, or they don't want to eat indoors. So everyone really realized that their outdoor spaces were incredibly important to have any connection with their friends or family. Like, okay, we're going to do Mother's Day outside. We're going to do Christmas outside. We're going to do Thanksgiving outside. And so, that's where all these materials, like, the thermo decking, the S-Tech decking, and having a good outdoor entertaining space has become kind of a real necessity, I think, for most people.
William, we were talking a little bit about this before. I feel like, after having a lot of conversations about this, the outdoors are really tricky. And landscape is hard because oftentimes when someone is remodeling, building, designing their home, the landscape is generally the last line item on the budget.
Yes.
And it's the first thing that people see, which is stunning. And it's also because of the way that you live outdoors, especially here, it's hard for homeowners to have vision, and many interior designers don't touch the outdoors, so their design ideas don't transfer beyond the patio door. What do you tell your clients? What do you tell your designers? And how do you share the vision, like we discussed a little bit before about, landscape is a 20-year plan. It's a 10-year plan. It doesn't happen overnight. You can put mature product in, but the majority of what you're doing is designed to grow into a space.
Yeah, the first thing I try to really point on is finding the moments in the house that can translate to the exterior, to like try to show value, and incorporating value in the garden and investing in, maybe something that's going to grow really slow, invest in something that's big now, so you get impact. And looking in the house where they've done impact and translating that outside. So the two correlate, so you have the same sentiment, same feeling when you move from space to space. Because that is the toughest thing, is to get everyone to see the value of the exterior, because the budget has dwindled down. So
you're talking about like actually putting larger plants inside too, and then the same types of plants outside that can
not necessarily
get the
always
same
plants. Like, it kind of, what does the client value most? Is it going to be the kitchen? Is it going to be the plants? Is it going to be the deck? Is it going to be a shade structure? So it really kind of understanding from spending time. My first question is, I want to spend time in your home. I want to look out the windows you're looking through to kind of see what they're going to value. That's probably the biggest thing.
So with that, let's talk about the path. Let's talk about the journey from inside to outside after you cross the threshold. Let's talk about decking. That is the path. Regarding product, new build, what you're going to see is amazing. Talk us through it a little bit so that there's a primer for what they're going to see.
Well, originally, all product comes up usually because of necessity. And I was running into all these situations with Michelle where we'd have a deck product that needed to go down on a project that was already built, already waterproofed, and the lovely architects don't give us any room to actually install our framing. So I would run into these situations where I would have like 1.5 inches or 2 inches to have a finished material and a framing material, and of course the whole deck has got undulation going to drains and sloping away, and your typical pressure-treated material or your typical framing just wasn't holding up when you'd be skimming it down to 1/2 inch, and then of course it would get wet and then it would split. So I came up with Quick Joist, which is an aluminum and stainless steel elevating system, floating elevating system, and it can be shaved down. Don't tell my brother this, but we can really pinch it down to almost like 1/4 inch sliding into your door thresholds, and then with our S-Deck or our thermal wood on top, we can come to these situations where we're only 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches from our threshold down to your waterproofing surface. So as soon as I figured out a way to actually be able to install something like that, the doors just flew open, because there were so many situations where people were in trouble. They wanted a certain look, they wanted a certain aesthetic, but there was no way to pull it off because there was no way to actually build it. So I just said yes, I'd figure out a way, and Quick Choice was born, and we're about 5 years in now, and we've probably got 250,000 square feet of decking down within the LA and San Diego, Santa Barbara, San Francisco area, and never one call back. And, we go out to these projects that are on the beach, literally 100 feet from the waves, and you pull up the product and it's still absolutely brand new. So there's no decay, there's no rot because it's stainless steel and aluminum. And then you couple that with S-Deck or thermowood, and you've got a 30, 40, 50-year product. You're going to be ripping it out because you're tired of the look before it falls apart.
And so now you understand why we put William between Jeremy and the architect.
Yeah.
So that being said, let's talk about new versus restored. You don't always have to. There's a process, right? And if you're thinking through something from idea to execution, you don't always have to put something new. Let's talk product for a minute. What are your options? What if you have something you love? Does everything have to be trashed, or can you restore?
Well, typically, obviously, wood is going to be much easier to restore. You can either use a chemical, or you can use sandpaper and elbow grease, and get it back to where it's attractive once again. But yeah, I would say definitely recommend wanting to talk to somebody who is a professional at restoring something like that. A lot of times people get into it and they think it's going to be an easy job, and it's just not. The tendency is a lot of times to try to save money on restoring what you already have, and you end up kind of compromising with spend more than you think you were going to, and then you don't get the new look that you want. So you really, don't want to skimp on that when you're trying to. If you're trying to do it to save materials or be eco-friendly, it's different than if you're just trying to save money. So a lot of times what I run into in construction is that somebody doesn't want to take out their whole deck. They just want to redo the top layer, take off, like reskin it, typically is what we call it, put just new decking down, and the labor and a lot of the problems come from the understructure. And so it ends up really being kind of a wash, and then you end up with a project that's not going to last as long as something that's new. So it's a good idea. We want to conserve materials for the environment, and sometimes you can if you have a relatively new understructure that's holding up well. I mean, you could have the quick joist, and maybe you just want to change out the top layer. That's never going to go bad, but a lot of times, even in a dry environment that you have here, when you start penetrating through pressure-treated understructure, the decking might be even in better condition than what's underneath, and you start tearing it apart, and that ends up with more problems than you thought you were going to have.
So, Mike, let's address the original idea here, because I think you wanted to potentially jump in there. What is the relationship between architect, designer, and product? Because I feel like if there's an opportunity, it's to further that communication between architect and product.
Well, I think most designers, we all kind of think the same, and I think everyone always says the same thing where they say, well, I want the indoor material to be the same as the exterior material, right? And then you can't necessarily put a maple floor in your backyard, right? But, he has this thermal wood product, which is a variety of different kinds of woods, which you're going to be able to find a really close match to your interior hardwood flooring, right? And so working with places with Michelle and with him, and then you also have S-Tech, which has, I don't know how many colors, 7, 8?
I think there's 9 right now.
Yeah. And then, another concern with clients is the environment and sustainability and longevity and maintenance and these kinds of issues, right? There's a lot of products that are made out of fossil fuels, for example, or plastics, etc. So we actually toured the S-Tech factory in Rotterdam a couple of years ago with William, and their product is not made of fossil fuels. I have no idea what it's made of, but it's
a secret, but
crazy product. Their number one problem in the company is how to get rid of it because it's impossible to destroy. So they're trying to find all these uses for it and ways to recycle it. And they basically had the material, and they're like scientists trying to find all different kinds of uses for it, right? And one of the main uses is that you could put this on the deck of a cruise ship, and it can go through minus any temperature and get really, really hot, and not expand and not crack and not change shape. And we have it on houses, that are in construction sites that are still being completed. And even my construction workers are like, that stuff is really what? Like, all we do is spray it with water and it cleans off like right away. And you're like, yeah, man, it's like, this is cruise ship stuff. This is drunk people spilling margaritas for 5 years straight,
Yeah.
And and they also, they put it on luxury yachts and everything. S-Tech.
It's called S-Tech, yeah. E-S-T-H-E-C.
Yeah, and he has a whole, display of it outside. It's the Rolls Royce of decks, and so it's it's not going to be the cheapest thing in the world. But if you have a client, and we all have clients who have that kind of money, and they don't ever want to have to maintain it again, and their yacht probably has this product on it,
Yeah, it's on
Almost,
about 80%
for
of
sure.
all cruise ships worldwide. So
And luxury yachts.
and
So
luxury
it's like-
yachts. Well, I mean, not quite that percentage on the luxury yachts, but it's definitely a big changeover from teak, just because getting teak is really, really tough to get now, and so the S-Tech has definitely come up a lot. And just going back on that expansion and contraction factor, if you had one board that was continuous for 3 kilometers, when it was exposed to the hot or cold temperatures, it would only expand 1 centimeter, one direction or the other. So there's literally no movement. So once you put it on, and you can get these really, really modern designs with really, really clean, tight joints, and it stays looking like that. And the only maintenance on it is hitting it with a pressure washer and a deck soap that they use on yachts. So it's biodegradable. You can spray it right off into the ocean. So you can spray it right off into your plants. It's called roll-off. You spray it on, use a pressure washer, and it really comes back to brand new. And the color, it's kind of nice. Because it's a urethane, it actually darkens over time. It doesn't fade. So when you put it out, it takes about a year for the color to actually get to where it's going to be. It's going to darken by about 5%. And it's through-bodied in color. So if you get a scratch, all you're doing is really exposing the raw urethane underneath. And it kind of self-heals in a way, because once the UV hits that scratch, 3, 4, 5 weeks goes by, that scratch just slowly disappears, because that fade or the darkening of the color comes through to the top. So it's great for all sorts of applications.
Here's the really interesting part about this. What does everyone want? That's the question, right? So a builder wants to maximize profit on a job. A homeowner wants to maximize the enjoyment that they get out of their home, and they want to maximize the amount of money that they're going to get when they sell it, right? So how do you do that? Because you can't create more real estate. You can't, if you're inside, can you move walls? Sure. Can you add rooms? Sure. Can you build up? Sure. To only some extent. The outside really is the X factor, because you can do so much with an exterior if you have someone who can sort of think through the process. So let's talk about maximizing space. Let's talk about when you go in and you look at a home and you're looking at the yard, be it the front or the back. A front, if it's frontage that's exposed to a street, there have to be ways to maximize opportunity. Backyard, there have to be ways to maximize opportunity. Where do you see locked opportunities that present the chance for you to unlock it?
That's interesting, because nowadays a lot of lots, you can have a bunch of space behind or a bunch of space in front. And so privacy always is an issue. People want to be safe. And again, back to their lifestyle, kids, no kids, animals, and, kids and animals is a great topic to bring up with a lot of these decking materials, because they're just durable and they're low maintenance versus actually having an organic surface like a lawn, or even doing something old world like pea gravel that gets tracked in the house. A lot of these products are nice and clean, and you just hose them down, so they're super family friendly. And for people's lifestyles that are, chasing themselves all day long, it's just nice to have something simple. And so maximizing their space in terms of their day-to-day life, of where they can come and go and use something functional, something that's brings them enjoyment on their investments, obviously. And elevation comes into play all the time. Also, a lot of people see a backyard that has 20 feet and then a slope, and they instantly think, "Oh, I'm stuck." So in the combination of retaining walls and grading, you can take a backyard that has 10 feet of flat and 100 feet of slope and create 5 more living spaces. So definitely the budget comes into mind, but the possibility is pretty much endless.
And also something else about design, right? We've all worked for developers, let's say a house on the hill, and they say, I want to see the city, okay? I want to see the city when I'm washing the dishes. I want to be staring at the city when I'm in the bathtub. I want the bed to be pointing at the city. I want to be sitting on a toilet looking at the city. It's like, okay, so you want me to design a house that's a long hallway with a bunch of rooms pointing at the city, right? And it's, the truth is, you can get a great view with 5 feet of side yard. You know, you can have other views. You don't always have to be looking at city lights. You could take a break. You know, you could look at some great landscaping, a really awesome Japanese maple tree, a crepe myrtle tree, something that changes with the seasons. Give you some
framing
some
the
sense.
views, framing.
Yeah.
You know, going to that, like creating rooms. You know, for me in the garden, that's in the house. You have your kitchen and your bathroom and your living room and your bedroom. And instead of, a lot of people have an imagination where I want my yard, I want to be able to see everything. But it's actually really fun and romantic, and there's a lot of exploration to walk through a yard, even if it's small, and create different spaces.
And I had a client talking to me about how, you know, people used to value goods, or people would value money, but now people are valuing experiences, right? Kids are paying thousands of dollars to go to Coachella or to Burning Man or whatever experience, a Disney cruise, right? They're spending so much money on this thing, but they're not going to spend money on a Cartier watch or on a fancy handbag. So these houses, or, you know, design in general, these landscapes, if you can create a variety of experiences, especially if you're on lockdown in your own house, right? If you're only living in a loft, one room with one window, you're only going to have one experience, right? But if you have a house where you have one view of this beautiful tree that's different every day, and the view of the city because the weather changes and that's different every day, and a view of some other landscape that's an indoor-outdoor space that changes as the sun, you know, a darker space, a lighter space, a shadier space, a softer space, a harder space. Now you have some variety and you're not so bored in your own property and just to stimulate yourself.
Another good point to that. People, when they think deck, I think traditionally they think big, like deck. It's like a big space. But really, like if you have a bedroom and there's a slider, you can have a small, nice little 5x5 little deck that has privacy planting around it with a little table and chairs that's its own little room. So, you know, the idea of a deck doesn't always have to be big. You can have different small spaces in different areas.
We're probably sitting in like 60 square feet, right?
Yeah, and you don't even need this much space.
So, Michael, go back to your different spaces. I want to talk to you about Sergio's house across, you know, up the street from my place. And
I've lost the room.
yeah, so with his house, we were restricted on actual live space, right?
It was a normal 5,000 square foot lot, right?
So
50 by
6, was it 5,000 square feet?
I'm making that up.
Because my place is 6,200. I'm guessing
yeah,
it's probably
so it's the same as yours.
So you had designed all these outdoor spaces that were connecting a bunch of indoor spaces and creating this huge house that was legal because of the way that you designed the framing. So can you describe how the framing worked, and like is there certain rules for having open ends or like having open ceilings that don't necessarily create a live space but still it's a usable
that's I guess everyone runs into this thing called FAR or RFA or floor area ratio, right? So Beverly Hills, LA, everybody has it. It's how much square footage can you fit on a lot, right? And every city has different ways they interpret the rules, and all developers / all homeowners pretty much oftentimes want the maximum square footage that they can get. And then often their solution is, and then after permit, I'm going to do this or whatever, right? I hate doing stuff after permit because you're going to get caught somehow. You don't think your multi-million-dollar lawyer neighbor isn't going to catch you? So anyway, it's so annoying. It's like he's the CFO of a 5-story law firm.
If a client says that,
yeah. So what you can do is you create an awesome outdoor space which doesn't count as square footage, and you're like, look, or even also with the client that doesn't have that much money and they only have a 1,000 square foot house that they can afford. You're like, but if we make this outdoor space, now it feels like 2,000 square feet.
So,
or you do 1,000 square feet with an ADU and you make the space in between feel connected to those two things.
Yeah. Along those lines, I want to
expand on that a little bit.
So you mentioned the ADU. and I'm glad you did, because here it's really interesting, it's really important. So I'm working on a design house project in Tulsa, Oklahoma. ADUs are not in the conversation in Oklahoma or Texas or anywhere in the Midwest or pretty much anywhere but California, New York, and maybe parts of Florida. Really important, because I think that we talk about value, but let's talk about enjoying where you live. If you're a designer, let's talk about the value that you're providing to your clients about where you live. I was having a conversation with an architect the other day and a designer, and they started saying some things that were kind of blowing my mind a little bit. Putting an ADU out there, decking the roof, and creating a place to put the telescope and to stargaze. What a great idea. It's also really interesting that kitchens right now, what's happening with kitchens is simply phenomenal. Most homes now are having some sort of a second kitchen, whether it's a full second kitchen outside or it's a dirty kitchen and a kitchen for show, whether it's a kitchen as part of an ADU. Some of the kitchens that you're putting outside, here's where I want the conversation to go. Putting in a substructure that is suitable, that's going to last, putting in a product on top of it that you can put the cabinetry and you can put all the basics for appliances, and then putting some sort of a shade structure over it and landscape. You've just created something amazing. And if you look at the product, the cost on the product side, it's nowhere near the value that you're adding. So I'm starting here because when you think about adding things like a stargazing space, a meditation area, a second kitchen, these are things that we haven't really had to think about because we could go out to eat, we could take a cruise, we could go travel, but now we're thinking differently about where we live. How does that change the way that you think about the way you design?
Well, I think the first thing I'll say is people get kind of overwhelmed when they finish the home and they start thinking about the exterior, and they've got a wish list. I want kitchen, I want a meditation space, I want a pool, I want a deck. And I've found that less is more. People have an idea of what an outdoor kitchen is, but realistically what you need and what you want. And a lot of times people put the money into a huge kitchen, but then there's not enough money for the plants. And then the plants they have are small, and then the whole yard is out of whack. So I think that less is more in a sense of having everything you want and it feeling comfortable. And again, prioritizing and putting value where you'll get your enjoyment back. And maybe your pocketbook will feel good too. But so incorporating everything, that's probably the biggest challenge I'm facing. Because people who have been at home now, and they've got a long punch list. The punch list used to be a pool and a kitchen. And now it is, because the people want it, when they were all stuck in the house together, they were like, I need to get out. I need to get away from my kids. I need to get away from my husband. And so they want the meditation space, the yoga space, the sun deck, and that's the biggest challenge is incorporating everything in the small area where you don't feel like you're at Disneyland. And you walk out and there's everything in front of you at once.
And also thinking about it at the beginning, too. Designing it as a group.
That's the biggest thing, because when you build a house, a lot of these components tie in, whether it's by engineering-wise or electrical or water. And if it's an afterthought, it usually looks like an afterthought.
And it costs a lot more.
Yeah.
And basically where we are now is we're in the slash removal phase, right?
Yes.
Slash removal. Dining room slash office. Kitchen slash classroom slash living room slash yoga studio. It's slash removal. And I would say that doing this in Southern California, you don't have the opportunity to do this elsewhere. I can tell you firsthand in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and this is kind of a direction I want to go in. Summer is 90 degrees with 80% humidity. Winter is 15 degrees with 10% humidity. That's not good for a lot of products. We were talking about a substructure that's made of aluminum that can handle heat. This is different because, like you were mentioning before about a substructure, if the substructure is solid, then you have more options with the top. What are some of the products that are available now? What are you seeing product-wise that is sort of changing the game?
I mean, you got to look primarily in the micro sense at logistics. Like, hoping that you're able to get a lot of your stuff from Europe still.
Well,
but,
it's taking 20 right now. My last round took 25 weeks to get.
yeah.
But
so a lot of
thankfully they sent 3 other colors with it, so
Yeah.
I've got a little bit of stock.
And you stockpile it.
Yeah.
a lot of what we're seeing is based on availability, because of the inherent characteristic of a lot of decking is heavy. So there is a lot of domestic production that really has sort of opened up one of the product lines that I sell, as it is a domestic product. There are other versions of it from Austria or Europe. It's developed in Europe about 40 years ago. It's old technology, but thermal wood, basically comes way back from ancient Japanese carpenters burning the outside of their cedar, Vikings using flames to season their boats and stuff like that. So the concept is old, but only recently has it been kind of perfected by I think it was the Finnish population perfected it. They brought it to the U.S. There's different types of modifiers, and so our availability is good. Our lead times are consistent, and that in today's environment is pretty important.
I'm going to dovetail onto that for 1 second, because you mentioned supply chain, and I think it's really important. I want to throw out some love to Design Hardware and some kudos, because I know for a fact we've had conversations. The research that they're doing in this showroom to manage logistics, to pre-sort issues as it relates to getting product in-house, I haven't seen anyone else. I'm sure there are some that are doing as much work as this because they have to, but I haven't seen anyone else doing the kind of work that they're doing on the front end, trying to manage product delivery on behalf of their designers and clients, which makes life a lot easier. But I'm curious, and whoever wants to, let's start here, how are you handling the supply chain issue, which is still changing so rapidly on a day-to-day basis, and how do you work with your showroom partners to manage the logistics?
I think it's getting in early. Like we were talking with Mike, now that we kind of have a team, and with Michelle, Mike, myself, and William, the houses that we're building are taking sometimes 2, 3, 4 years to get complete. So as the construction's being made, they're getting me in early to find out, what depths do we need this to be at for your exterior to be able to transfer to your interior. So we've got a lot of time to pre-plan. I've got a project down in Newport that they've been building for 2.5 years, and it's 3,500 square feet of deck, 7-inch material, and they wanted it special color with all single nuance. And so we ordered that before Christmas, and knowing that it's going to take that long. So with smaller projects, say under 1,000 square feet, hopefully, I'll have enough product in Michelle's warehouse to be able to get the favorite colors out in time. But the main thing is just thinking about it early, and it actually kind of helped in my sales, because it forced people to make decisions. Because if they knew that it's going to happen and they need this done, before their son's birthday or whatever, and then we're at that 25-week mark, hey, let's get a deposit going, and it kind of forces them to get rocking and rolling. So it helped in a few ways, but then we've lost a few because we couldn't get in that time.
William?
Same story with decking. I mean, I could go on other products in the garden, but they're not really related to this, but it's the same thing. Planning, and from the day one, having a team together, it's where you're not just focused on the house. You think on the big picture and materials, because right now it is very difficult.
And I think, all of our favorite designs, when you really think about it, are the ones that really relate to the exterior really well, right? Even if they're just looking at a view, but they still relate to the exterior really well. You look at any magazine, you're going to see a picture of a pool and a view and a deck and a house and a living room that's indoor, outdoors, So as long as you have your little floor plan, at the beginning, just draw a square between that living room outside and back in again. And then do that on the bathroom, and then do that on the bedroom, and start making these outdoor spaces that work with the indoor spaces. Then it's part of the design. You can't really get rid of it anymore, and you'll ruin the house if you do get rid of it, right? And again, you can really maximize your budget. When we were talking about having an ADU in a house, and maybe they're both really small, but you have a flooring material which is the same between that living room, and the outdoor deck, and it looks kind of and it blends together, it's not like you can just value engineer out the deck. And so,
Speaking
and
of
you
that,
have a wholly incorporated global design that's not a sculpture on someone's desk that they stick on the site at the end. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, there is a trend, the North American hardwoods that we are able to now use in outdoor applications due to the thermal modification process.
Like what?
Well, we use ash,
Yeah.
and unfortunately the ash tree in North America is going to be extinct here pretty soon, at least in the short term. We're moving now to red oak, which, oak flooring has been the standard in interior forever. So you really can get something that you may not be able to match the sheen. A lot of the exterior stuff, you're not going to want a high sheen, lacquer finish. It just doesn't hold up. But you can definitely have some of the same grain patterns, and you can have maybe a more natural looking exterior wood that wouldn't hold up if not for the thermal modification process.
I was going to say I find the high sheens are kind of out of style right now anyway, so
Yeah.
it kind of works.
Everything, cars.
Even stone, stone, cars.
And by the way, that also brings up an excellent point. And when it comes to style and trends, I think we've all pretty much learned the lesson. You don't follow the trends because they can whipsaw on you and quicker than they came to style, they can go out. But quality lasts for much longer. I was going to say forever, but it doesn't. Quality lasts much longer, right?
We look at Carrera marble. It's been around forever, and it's still one of those items you see in any house, and it's just absolutely stunning forever.
Yeah, no, it's true. So with this, I think we've covered a lot of ground here, and I love this. So what we're going to do next, Design Hardware wanted to give you an opportunity to hear a conversation, think differently about some of these things, get some new ideas, and then actually make this interactive. So we're going to have lunch in a second, and then I really encourage you to go speak to all these folks. But first, let's talk about this. So what are you doing?
I've actually got a small quick joist deck set up in the showroom with S-Deck planking on it. I've disassembled a portion of it so you can kind of see how it gets assembled. And then I've got my computer set up because I built my house in 2004, finished it in 2006, lived in a 1978 Winnebago with my girlfriend after 20 years. Just can't believe it. But I designed the house to have a roof deck. And so I'm finally getting around to doing it. And I'm really excited because I'm putting my quick joist system down, which I didn't invent the quick joist system yet back in the day. So my system's on the roof. I'm using this product S-Deck, and it's going to be a real true inside-outside space because I'm doing a small kind of guest space upstairs. It's going to have a bathroom, shower, little sink, big Cow King bed, and then the room is facing into like a big grand area with a bar and a big seating area and outdoor kitchen. But I'm actually running the S-Deck from the outside into the interior, and I'm going to have a big glass garage door that comes down and closes off the room, so there'll be no door threshold. And the difference between the S-Deck on the outside and the S-Deck on the inside, this will have the 3/16 gap where the water will go through and then into the roof below. Once it transfers through that door line, I'll put a backing rod in the gap, and then I'll use a siliconized grout and grout it in so it'll become a solid floor. So the material will be exactly the same sheen, same everything, and then there will be no door thresholds throughout the whole place.
So smart. William?
I'll just continue this conversation.
Perfect. Mike?
I have photos of process photos, pedestal systems, quick joist systems, decks that Jeremy's done, and also even sometimes, just pedestal systems for showers, decks, exterior spaces.
Perfect. Garth?
I have a sample of a old, 7-year-old piece of wood that I refinished in stages, so you can see kind of what it looked like, and then what you can get out of it, and then just in general thermally modified wood and the coating that is recommended for it.
And one thing we didn't talk about either was the Virock material. Yeah, so and maybe you can explain it a little bit. It's a cementitious wood, right, that's got a wood fiber that's integrated into it. It comes in 4x8 sheets. in a couple different thicknesses, so 1/4 inch, half
Right up
inch.
to 30 mil.
Yep.
Cement board that can be used interior, exterior, wet areas. You can pretty much mill it to what you.
So I'll be using it on.
You're gonna use
I'm going to use it on
conjunction
my
with
So I'll have my S-deck as the decking, and then the structure that I'm building, I'll use tin cam framing, so it'll be super light. So just metal framing with exposed beams, probably a wood ceiling, and then
The point is also
Yeah.
that a lot of the decking materials now aren't just decking materials.
Right.
They can be used on everything.
yeah, facades. You know,
Shade
we've got a
structures,
new facade
everything.
material that's come out, so you can really blend the decks to the vertical applications. But the Virock I'm going to use for the whole exterior.
Larry is here to talk about the Valco Mountain Rock as well.
Okay, great,
So he represents the Portuguese company
excellent.
that we import from. So we can talk more about that.
And there's some pieces out there in front of the deck, right?
So you can get all your questions answered, and I also want to make sure that you stop by and see Moya and Win from Moya Living,
Yep.
and you stop by and you see Rocky from the Paint Lab, and make sure you grab some lunch. And by the way, if you liked the conversation, I hope you did, go to Apple Podcasts and you can download the Doctoring Up Design podcast, which is where we will publish this conversation. And so I just want to make sure we saved up not asking the questions here so that you can go ask the questions there and get the one-on-one information that I know you want. So please, after this, help yourself to some lunch and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.